Good afternoon or good morning. My name is Dr. James Underwood, and I'm the Programme Leader for the Masters of Education at the University of Northampton. We have a very large Masters of Education degree at the University of Northampton. It's actually one of the largest in the country. It's a very dynamic and very productive community of researchers, professionals, and practitioners. It has two dimensions to it, particularly. It has a large international cohort, but it also has a large cohort of students who are also teachers, professionals, and school leaders in Northampton. And as this event today is about Education Northampton, it's the research of those teachers and students that I will be focusing on. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to present some slides and some ideas from a workshop that I've actually taken to a range of places over the years, and it modifies each year as different students produce different research. And it illustrates some of the challenges and some of the work that our students do. I've taken this particular workshop to Bialystok University in Poland, Kazan University in Russia. I've taken it to Cambridge and Oxford University in England and a wide range of other universities. And I think that also illustrates the reach that our students can get to with their research as practitioner researchers, professionals in Northampton, but also part of our postgraduate community. The workshop I usually run with this title takes about an hour. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab 4 slides from that usual workshop and show them to you and show you some thoughts on our masters and what our masters students do. The next thing to say is when I run this as an online workshop, often I send a video, a different video, a longer video, and ask people to pause and think as with key workshop questions as we go through. If you're watching this, feel free to do that. Feel free to have a look at it and think and gather your thoughts at each of those stages. So we're going to talk a little bit, every quote, everything written on all of these 4 workshop slides that I'm going to show you was written from the research generated by and the thesis written by a University of Northampton student who was also a local teacher, teaching assistant, school leader, but a local professional working within the context of schools in Northampton. So I'm just going to share my screen now, and I'm going to grab the first quote. So as this quote says, this is the first prompt I often bring to workshops and events where I'm introducing the work that we do at Northampton. And as that prompt suggests, the first thing I often discuss is the purpose of research. And you might be thinking about that yourself if you're considering applying or starting a master's in education. Here's 2 quotes from teacher researchers taken from the introduction of their thesis, which looks at their personal moral purpose or professional purpose for doing research. So the first one says, I had a clear moral purpose to develop the school community that was tight-knit and I felt I was an important part of. So this is one reason we find students often do research. They're connecting it to their school development plan, they're connecting it to ambitions for their school and community. They're taking just one part of it and they're developing assessment, critical thinking, or pastoral care or student voice within their school through the process of research. And it's one reason why I think teacher-led research is such a specifically powerful and distinct field. But there's a second reason there. And it says, to me, it was reflection, it was self-development. I'm a good teacher, I teach well, but I wanted to dive deeper, to explore further. I'm not sure that it would be important for others, but I'm not sure that that mattered. And I think it's really important to recognize that as a possible reason for engaging as a researcher. Research as self-development is a very powerful form of research. There's good evidence that teachers who engage in further study at a midpoint in their career often feel more positive about their work, often stay in the profession longer. So I think those are both valuable and interesting reasons to do research. That personal development for the experienced teacher or school leader, or that sense of I'm doing research to contribute to a wider community. Okay, I'm going to jump past a few and jump to another slide I often use in this workshop. Okay, let's go to this one. So, prompt 3, scale. So again, this is from a, a reflection at the end of a thesis on the success of the project. And it's interesting, a lot of people say, oh, why would I do masters? It sounds very daunting. The interesting thing is the scale you're working on as a practitioner research is almost like comparing poetry analysis to analyzing a novel. You're going into real depth in your own practice and your own context. So as this teacher says, so I started with the hope that I would do this big, highly generalizable piece of research. But as it developed, it got smaller and smaller, and that was fine. My final research project was just 2 observations about 1 hour each and 3 interviews. However, I learned to love it. It was a little jewel. I was very proud of the depth I reached, analyzing those interviews almost like one would a poem. It contributed to my understanding as a professional and also conversations in the schools and other schools, a sort of in the school and other schools, a sort of ripple effect. And there's a question at the bottom there, and there's a question at the bottom of each of these slides that I would use if I was delivering this in a full-length workshop. And I think it's an interesting positive challenge for us in the academic community, this powerful research that can come from teacher researchers, often of a slightly different style, focused on depth and understanding in a context that they know well. And much of our research at Northampton has that feel to it and has that nature to it. Prompt 4. I find this really interesting because I think this is part of the growth experience of doing a master's or doing postgraduate study at the university. This actually doesn't come from a thesis. This comes from some interviews I did with master's students asking, why did you engage? What was the gain? What did you get from doing your master's? And I found this a particularly interesting comment from one of these teacher researchers from within Northamptonshire. So the process of doing research had a profound effect on me. It led me towards reading research, but also freed me from dependence on research in my decision making. It was a 2-stage process that moved me from initially discovering the research out there to being able to critically evaluate it, to then being able to write my own and feel I was part of the academic conversation. It affirmed me as both a reader and a writer. And I think that's a really interesting part of the research story, the research journey of many postgraduate students. Is one thing they will often say to us is, I kind of shied away from research. I didn't engage with research. And then when I started to read it, I felt rather obedient to it and I had to follow it. But in that final stage of my master's, I was approaching it as an equal, able to challenge the research, able to generate my own research evidence, but also able to fully engage in that community. And that's certainly what we would hope people gain from the experience of being on the master's course over a year or 2 or 3 if you take it part-time, and developing themselves as researchers and professionals. And this is where I come to the very last one that I'm going to show. Craft. Yes, I learned to craft. The most important thing that my supervisor, taught me was craft skills. I learned how to write, how to research. They were important. And I then feel like I became a craftsperson. I became a teacher of these new skills to others. I brought them into the school. We became a community that knew how to research, that could generate knowledge. That was affirming too. And I think that idea of schools as knowledge communities is at the heart of what we're trying to do on this master's program and that we're trying to bring to you. Now, I've just picked 4 prompts, so you'll have seen a couple of others that flicked up briefly on the screen as I flicked through them. But these kind of workshops and this workshop way of teaching through prompts and discussions is also at the heart of the Masters. And I really hope that you'll feel able to join our community and to develop yourselves and your schools. If you do want to talk about the Masters program, just get in touch with me. My name is James Underwood. My email, as with all Northampton emails, my first, second name at northampton.ac.uk. So it's been a pleasure to talk to you and to present these brief snippets from our Masters course, and I hope I meet some of you in the future.